Hello guys, so welcome back to the Crew Wildrun Driving All Cars, part number 49, the Hummer H1 Alpha. That's what we are looking at here in full stock version. It has quite a few specs, almost all of the normal ones except for the circuit, so it's street, dirt, performance, rate, and it also is available in monster spec. In full stock, well, I don't know for sure, but it's probably one of the slowest cars in this game in full stock. It's more based on off-road capacities, I guess. Even with this full stock you can go on the dirt and off-road, and of course limited to 110 miles or 170 kilometers an hour, but yeah, I don't think it even gets there in full stock. Maybe if you have enough long straight and enough time, you might get to 200 kilometers an hour or something. Let's take a look at the acceleration. I'm gonna try to look the weight. I didn't, that was a bit too fast to see it. Sort of a hardtop on this, on here, compared to the full stock, which was sort of a pickup. On the street spec I put a hardtop on it, which sort of makes it a bit of a square box, if you look at it like that. It's wide, it's heavy, but usually those American things in game have pretty big engines, and so not necessarily means it's going to be slow in acceleration, but we'll see. In general, street spec, let's say the averages are somewhere in the 26 second range. We have a few extreme slow ones going over 27 seconds and a few fast ones going under 20 seconds. 6 seconds, that is. It is four-wheel drive, so should not have a problem with the start. Doesn't seem to suffer from wheel spin. That's always a positive side for acceleration test that I do here on the Bonneville flat, which is not really a road. It's also not really dirt, because you can go over the 170 or 110 miles an hour. It's not limited here. Oh, I did not see 26. Nope, we did see 25.702, and that is kind of a big surprise, because that's 19 thousandths of a second faster than the Skyline in acceleration, that is. The only thing faster so far is the Ducati Monster. We haven't tested all cars here yet, so it all not a complete ranking, or if you can call it that. Also circumstances sometimes. Some of the tests that I've done here, it was raining slightly, and once or twice even heavy rain. The dirt spec, which sort of seems to be a pickup mode again, and also a short bed by the looks of it, which kind of makes this car look half the size of the street spec, which probably isn't not the case, but it looks like that. 1, 2, 3, 26 seconds cars we have here, and this one does 27.0. So also here acceleration is definitely on the faster side of things. We have quite some 27 and even 28 cars in dirt spec here on this acceleration test, but a 27.0 tested about 15 cars, and so far, and there are only 3 in the 26 seconds, and those are kinda the faster ones. So also in dirt, pretty good acceleration. Performance, fastest here so far LaFerrari with 22.5, and here we tested about 35 or 40 in performance spec, which is the spec that has the most cars in it, I think. (22, 23, 24, 25 seconds, that's what we're dealing with here. So lately I'm going with, like in this case, the 23.5 is sort of in the middle. It's kind of average, but it is above average at least. If we consider 23 seconds above average and 24 seconds below average. 22 is kind of top, and 25, yeah, I forget about those. So 23.5 is also on the upper side of the table if you look at it like that, so above average again. What else does this thing have is a rate spec. The rate is a bit of a problem here on this acceleration test. In the beginning I didn't realize it, but they seem to have some sort of limiter at 242, 243 kilometers an hour. Although cars like this one can do 270, but not on this acceleration test. So I don't know. Which also results that most of the cars did a 30 seconds here. 31, 30.2, 30.5, 30.6, a whole range of 30 seconds. 1 or 2 on 29, guess those are kinda the betters. But yeah, the Mustang 2011 30.6, which is kinda considered the best rate spec, or at least one of them. 30.2, so also in rate, acceleration, definite plus. Which makes it, of course, an overall plus for this car. No doubt about it. Acceleration, it definitely has. Of course, it's a big, heavy machine. Can also immediately fill in for another plus the solid factor of things. You can hit a car with this thing, and at least small traffic cars, they won't bother you too much. You will slow down, of course, kinda normal if you hit other cars, but it's not like you're gonna spin out or flip over with this thing. It can take a hit. So it is solid and it has acceleration. Now we are going towards the handling and speed test on this little track that I always do here. That's probably going to be a bit differently. It's heavy, it's wide, the response is, well, it's kinda okay for the weight that this car has, but can't call it good. And that will also usually the case with heavy cars. The brakes, and also here, yeah, not really that decent. First corner seems to be okay. Second corner, we are going in the corner with a little bit of oversteer, coming out of it with understeer. So and the brakes no good, which sort of makes us over here, same story. Looks like you're gonna get oversteer and then you get understeer, which oversteer here, understeer there, brakes not that good. That's what I call a bit of boat handling. It is more or less okay with this one. We've seen worse in some of the tests here or previous videos, but it's suffering from it though. Going towards the outside of the corner, so more understeer than oversteer. S corner, come here, good, that's okay. Towards the barrier again. So we are dealing more with understeer than anything else, although it going into the corner it tends to oversteer sometimes as well, which makes it a bit tricky to handle. First you're dealing with the oversteer, then you're dealing with the understeer, and meanwhile in both scenarios you're losing time. for time attacks and things like that. So that's not really an option for this thing. Speed-wise, 364. That is amongst the better one in street spec. So also the top speed, at least for the street spec, more than decent. The handling is the biggest problem though. And in specific the understeer. It is solid, so a few fences like we just passed there, it's not really going to be a big issue. And that sort of will come back because, well, it's sort of the same car in the other specs. Though plus side, acceleration and solid, minus understeer, and the brakes are not that good. Which also makes the best use probably not the street spec. That's what we are still have to figure out, which is the best one. Performance spec, also there, I think we had to use it in a summit event once for a speed trap on an oval for all places, and you could hardly make turns with this thing. So I'm also aware of that. This is going to understeer as well, maybe even more than the street spec, if I remember correctly. A little bit more wings and roofs, spoilers or whatever you want to call that, and a big wing sort of mounted in the pickup bed. Looks kinda okay, considering this is more of an off-road based vehicle. Guessing that, well, that's probably the best use. Armies. It's heavy, it's solid, it can take off-road, and yeah. Again, it's coming back already. The brakes are not that good. Bit too much weight to put to a standstill, I guess. Yeah, so in the same situation. Go into the corner and you think, okay, seems to be fine, and then you come out of the corner and you tend to go to the outside. Testing if this thing wall rides, which is not the case in comparison with something like a Ford Raptor in performance, which is probably the best wall riding car in this game. Also street spec Impala can do it, although not as good as the Raptor. So, but this one not, you lose a lot of speed if you do it, so not an option. Yeah, you have to slow down in the corners or you will end up on the outside every time. So also here we are suffering from understeer. I'm looking at the acceleration here, which is kind of above average on the mile. With 23.5 seconds in performance, that's it is heavy and solid, so a jump like that should not make a problem. We are also approaching 400 kilometers an hour, which is kinda amongst the better ones as well on that section in performance. Most of the top performance cars can do easily 400, some go even 405 or more, so top speed also not bad. It is a bit heavy and Other than that, it's not suffering from wheel spin like you mostly have with cars with a bit of weight in this game. It's not suffering from that, so it puts the power on the road in this case, but it understeers a bit too much to make it something good. So also in performance spec, not really the best use. This one I haven't used much, I must say, in the dirt spec. Which you can make whatever you want with it, those things. You can make a soft top, hard top, pickup, customization, you can change. I made it like this, seems to be some sort of short bed pickup, and thinking that might help us smaller cars go over dirt a bit easier, but well, the problem here is acceleration more than okay, but also here the weight is going to be a problem, not on this first section, which is basically a long straight with two little jumps. At least for a car like this, those are little jumps. Easy landing on four wheels. Meanwhile, I was looking at the speedometer, and on top of there you have the stunts that you are doing. I'm just doing a few simple tests here, and meanwhile you do jumps, you drift, and there you go, multiplier 1.6. So again, 700 bucks, 500 bucks there. I did a 2000 combination earlier. Sometimes people wonder, how can you make bucks in this game? Well, this is one of the ways. Although you're not gonna get yourself rich with doing some stunts or driving around on a dirt road like this, but well, a few thousand here and there, and it all adds up. If you're new to this game, you think it all costs quite some money, and you think, Jesus, how can I make money in this game? And then a couple of months later you have all cars, most of them at $12.99, and then you have nowhere to go with all your money, eventually limiting it at 9,990,000 and so on, which is the cap, maximum cap, 10 million minus 1. Meanwhile, we are going around in a sort of smoothly pace, more or less, but just a bit too heavy. And then if you're gonna put a Skyline or a RUV or BMW X6 next to it, you're gonna see them disappear in the distance somewhere. So also in dirt, not the best use, I guess. Although it's out of the three, this is probably the better one. At least that's how it looks like. Street, performance, dirt, then I guess you have to go for dirt, but in the end we will end up with best use will be the race spec, and for a couple of reasons. Although also that one has its negative sides, which you can already see here. With some two-wheel action, it's pretty easy to flip this thing over. You can flip every car over if you are going to hit rocks and stuff like that, but this thing sometimes, even if you don't intend to flip it, it flips over it occasionally. And that is also the problem for the rate spec. Other than that, it's pretty solid and keeps going, as you will see in the next text when I take the rate spec out. And it also has the top speed. This will be the same for this one. We are already doing 300, 312 somewhere, and then I was kind of off-road, so lost some speed there. So acceleration and top speed, this thing does have in most of the specs. And also the rate spec can do 270. Will be the slipstream even 280 or 290. So also that one has top speed amongst the better specs. You can throw it around on the dirt tracks, especially in this customization pickup. But you're not gonna win time attacks with this thing for sure. Which leaves us with the rate spec. If you look at this car and then take out the rate spec, well, it seems to be twice as big, although the wheelbase and all probably will be the same. Going back to the road there, if I can find it. Quite some players. There are always some players around on the Bonneville. Some people really like drag, don't they? And the grinders, of course. For those who are busy doing summit events, little hint: if you don't want to drive around, which I kind of prefer, you can set not here, we will come to the point later, but you can sort of do a free drive challenge, and you put the start on one side of the Bonneville flat in the first checkpoint on the other side, and then you go back to the start and you put the third checkpoint there, and so on. And then you take out the drag car and you go up and down the Bonneville flats in a drag car. About 8 times, I believe. Usually there are 9 checkpoints, with the latest being the finish. So and the result of it is that it will sort of be a free drive challenge of 50-60 kilometers, which normally would take you 10 minutes, something like that. But since you are doing it in a drag car going over the Bonneville flat, you're not dealing with traffic or anything like that. It's just 500-600 kilometers an hour going up and down. It's boring as hell, and that's why I don't really like it, but it gains you some time. You can do it in 7 minutes and a half, 8 minutes, instead of 10 minutes if you would do the same distance on the road. And that's what the grinders are doing here. That's why there is always a lot of players around on the Bonneville flat, and probably more than you can see, because I think visibility is or loading is limited to 8 players. So you can only see 8 players at the same place, I believe. Although there will be more around, but that's what you get if you drive around. In free drive you will see other names appear in the chat box or whatever if you're just driving around. Meanwhile, we're in the jump section, and like I said, this thing just keeps going. Although I'm not really pushing it. Maybe I should have put more corner-wise stuff in this run track, because it's solid, so something like a light pole or electricity pole, it's not really going to slow it down. It will always slow down a few kilometers, that's because you hit something, which is kind of normal. thing with the race spec as well as with the dirt spec is that you sort of have to control the RPM meter. And by that I mean that using your boost, your nitro, maybe even manual is a good option here, because it has a pretty decent acceleration if you have it above 4000 RPM. Somewhere like now it keeps going, and now you go back to 3700 something, and then it starts to slow down, or at least that's how it looks like. So the acceleration is good in most of these specs, but not low RPM. Like this, it keeps going, shifts the gears, goes back to 4200 RPM, keeps going, not a problem. But if you take a corner or something, then sometimes it goes down to 3300, 3400 RPM, and then that's where the problem. Then it seems like you have hardly any acceleration. Not enough power to get the weight moving. But other than that, I mean, it hardly moves on the jumps. Landings are a bit of a problem sometimes. And that's probably the biggest problem of this thing. If you really have landings and then a small steering mistake before the jump, sideways, it easily flips over on the landings. Other than that, it's a pretty good race spec. It has a top speed to follow the better specs in rate. Which means we're down to the monster spec, but also here sort of the same problem. So the rate spec is the best use for this car, at least in my opinion. You can use the street in, for instance, in something like a blitz, where people are usually ramming you out of the circle. Yeah, take something like the Hummer and they're not going to move you. More than likely going to be the other way around. This thing keeps going on the rocks and stuff like that. There are scramble tests out there which involve the rocks. Just by heart, I think scramble test number 69 is one of them. Somewhere up north in the west coast. And that's full of rocks, and this thing like this can keep going. Not at high speed, but not a problem. But it is a monster spec, so you also have to go to monster arenas, and that is a bit of a problem. Not so much for the jumps. But if you start turning around a bit with it, sort of the same as in dirt and in raid. Once corners or turning comes into play, it's a bit of a problem. And it also tends to flip over like this, sort of on the front wheels. Every landing it sort of lifts the rear wheels, and yeah, if you do that a bit too fast, more than likely going to roll over. Now let's see if this thing can make the jump here, which is kind of a big jump if you do this for a summit event. 5000 points on top of that thing there, and yeah, might just make it or just not. You make it every time with an abort, that's why most people use the abort in this arena, but you can also do it with a Skyline or some of the others. But also here, not enough speed, and that's probably the biggest problem of this car. It's not that high on speed, and sometimes you need it to do a certain combo. But even if you roll, just lands on the roof, flips over a bit more, and you're back on your wheels. Solid it is. If you do this with other monster specs, more than likely you're going to activate the crash cam. Not with this one, keeps going. 720, sort of okay, but also here the rear wheels lift off again. So you can use this, but more than likely, or preferably, on the scramble test or something like that. In the Monster Arenas itself, it can be used, but there are better cars to use. You're always going to lose a landing here or there. Good landing or bad landing instead of perfect. So no, also not the Monster spec. No, we're going to end up with the raid spec as the best use. And surprisingly, with the weight and all that it has, it's a pretty good accelerating car. I will see you guys in the next one, and bye for now.